and thank you for joining me this Sunday afternoon. Back to normal with the time, so here goes. The majority of us love a good horror film, but does the subject matter covered in them sometimes spill into real life? Is the mere production of a horror movie opening a door for chaos to come through? It makes you wonder. So let's take a delve into some cursed films. The original 1982 release of Poltergeist is undoubtedly the best in the series. Although rather dated now compared to modern CGI-led films, I remember it being whispered about in school corridors. It certainly had a big impact at the time. What nobody knew back then was that it also came with its own catalogue of chilling events, both during and after production. Zelda Rubinstein, who played the spirit medium Tangina, stated that she was no stranger to the supernatural, even when off set. She told the story of being visited by her dog in a dream while she was away from home. When Zelda awoke, she received a phone call to say that her dog had passed away. She felt that it had simply come to say goodbye. Jo Beth Williams, who played family matriarch Diane, reported that she stayed in a home where the bed seemed to be shaking, only to be told by the homeowners it was a ghost. While filming Poltergeist, Jo Beth would often come home to find her paintings and wall hangings askew. She would straighten them, then next morning head off to set, only to return and find them all tilted again. She began to worry that someone, or something, was warning her not to be involved in the film. Dominique Dunne, who played Jo Beth's daughter Dana in the film, once witnessed a bookshelf tip and toss books around the room. Dominique herself met a tragic end. Her boyfriend seemingly couldn't handle the attention she was receiving after starring in the film, and during an argument on Dominique's driveway, he strangled her until she was unconscious. She fell into a coma and died 5 days later. The brutal and senseless murder of Dominique Dunne was the inciting incident for rumours that Poltergeist was cursed. These rumours failed to deter the film's writers from signing on for a sequel, though production was far from smooth sailing. Things slowed down to a dead halt when a malfunctioning creature effect known as the vomit monster continually failed to work, causing actor Craig T. Nelson to pretend to throw up a disgusting practical effect for over 10 hours. When director Brian Gibson finally decided he'd got the shot, the cast and crew went home for the day. The next morning they discovered that something had damaged the film, rendering it unusable, meaning they would have to endure the whole hellish ordeal again. This was not the worst problem on set. The film's finale was set in a cave, and the constructed set was small and uncomfortable, causing actors to scratch their heads and lighting rigs to topple over. When Nelson complained about the eerie and unsettling vibe of the cave set, actor and experienced shaman Will Sampson inspected the set for negative energy. He decided that it was coming from the prop skeletons. This was when the cast learned that some prop skeletons were actually human remains that had been used to deepen the film's realism. Sampson asked if he could exorcise the set, and after being given permission, Nelson reported that production issues immediately stopped. Death hung over the production in other ways. Julian Beck, who played the film's antagonist Kane, was dying of colon cancer while filming the movie, and aware of that fact. His frightening performance seemed to conjure up feelings of dread that cast and crew alike found deeply unsettling. Shortly after production wrapped, Beck passed away. In another tragic circumstance, Will Sampson later died due to complications during a heart and lung transplant. Craig T. Nelson visited Sampson's grave and recalled an uncanny moment when the oppressive drone of cicadas in the trees suddenly stopped as Nelson spoke aloud to his deceased friend. Young star Heather O'Rourke, who played Carol Ann Freeling, also came down with a mysterious illness, something that would eventually lead to her own death, aged only 12. The third movie in the Poltergeist franchise was a low point for both the series and many of those involved. Heather's mysterious illness was diagnosed as Crohn's disease, but any discomfort she felt did not hold her back from agreeing to reprise her role as Carol Ann a third time. Zelda Rubinstein returned as well, but none of the other cast members were interested. Special effects malfunctions and accidents abounded on this set as well, with an underwater catapult device going awry and shredding a stuntman's shins, and a bit of clumsiness resulting in director Gary Sherman breaking his leg. The film was set and produced in Chicago's John Hancock Tower, which was no stranger to death, as over 100 builders had died during its construction. One more death occurred when the building engineer assigned to help the film's production staff was found dead in his chair mid-shift, though no foul play was suggested. Zelda Rubinstein received another psychic premonition similar to the one she'd had previously about her dog, but this time the sudden shock she received while on set alerted her to the fact that her mother had died. A strange anomalous photograph of Rubinstein shows the woman haloed by bright white light, which made the director think that the photo may have been taken at the exact moment of her mother's death. Another special effect gone haywire meant that a supposedly controlled explosion became a raging, uncontrollable fire that sent on-set firemen running for their lives and left one maintenance worker trapped in the building. A particularly brave stuntman went back in to rescue the worker, managing to rescue the cameras and film as well, for which the director dubbed him a hero. The real tragedy occurred when the film went on hiatus for several months. As she was getting ready for school, Heather O'Rourke noticed that she had difficulty swallowing. Her mother found that Heather's hands were cold. They took Heather to the hospital, but due to a congenital abnormality in her intestines, Heather died of septic shock. In another strange moment of premonition, Heather's mother recalled seeing her daughter appear before her, while her daughter was still in the other room with the doctors. She reportedly said to her mother, "I'm not coming back." Whether you believe in otherworldly spirits, occult occurrences, or demonic curses, it's clear that the Poltergeist films were plagued by misfortune. The heartbreaking deaths of its actors, the dangerous and frustrating technical problems, and the self-inflicted blunder of using real skeletons in lieu of replicas all culminate into a series of deeply traumatic experiences. Though there may be some excitement in horror stories like these, it would be a far better world if such things were relegated to movies and the pages of fiction. The Omen was another box office horror hit, also with a child as the lead character, but this time instead of being the victim, he was the protagonist. It's also rumoured to be another cursed production, the strange events beginning in 1975. September 1975, and lead actor Gregory Peck was flying to London. During the flight, lightning struck the plane. Shortly after, executive producer Mace Newfield's plane was also struck by lightning while en route to Los Angeles. That's twice in a span of only a few weeks. Then, writer David Seltzer's plane was struck by lightning, and while filming in Rome, lightning narrowly missed striking producer Harvey Bernhard. It is said lightning never strikes twice, but 4 times, to 4 different people, whose only 6 degrees of separation at the time was the Omen. What are the odds of that? As it turns out, Peck was probably thrilled to have his struck by lightning instead of what could have happened in a separate event. The planned filming of an action scene was delayed, which happens. This meant that Peck was not needed on the set, so a private jet that the crew was going to charter to bring Peck in was not necessary. The next day, news arrived that must have sent chills down the spine of the entire cast and crew. The plane they had intended to book hit a flock of birds and crashed, killing everyone on board. While that was tragic enough, the plane struck a car driving along the road as it came crashing down, killing everyone in the car. But wait, there's more. The people in the car? The wife and 2 children of the plane's pilot. At the time of filming, London was under a rash of explosions set by the IRA, so it sadly wasn't uncommon. What was uncommon is 2 incidents that again struck people associated with the film. Mace Newfield, probably already on edge after his plane being struck by lightning, was planning to eat at a restaurant nearby, but apparently no seats were available after it was gutted by a bomb. The day after filming, the hotel that director Richard Donner had stayed in was also bombed. Even the animals used during the production became a problem. Rottweilers used to portray the hellhounds would often turn and attack their own trainers. Stuntman Terry Walsh was seriously injured despite his preparations. The Safari Park drive-through scene, where Damien, played by Harvey Spencer Stevens, and Kathy Thorne, played by Lee Remick, are attacked by baboons, is all too real. Watching the scene, you'd be forgiven for thinking that it's a great piece of acting from Remick. The baboons were so vicious, her reactions on film were of genuine terror. The day after filming saw the death of a zookeeper in the jaws of a lion. The most tragic event, however, would befall Liz Moore, assistant to John Richardson, who was the special effects designer for the film. The pair were driving through the Netherlands and along the way were involved in a horrific car accident. Richardson escaped with minor injuries, but Moore was decapitated by a tyre that smashed into their car. That fact is sickening enough, but there's a ghastly parallel to the movie itself. In one scene, a photographer that's helping Robert Thorne, Gregory Peck, research Damien's origins, Keith Jennings, played by David Warner, is killed when he is decapitated by a sheet of glass that falls off a construction vehicle while driving. And if that wasn't creepy enough, the accident occurred on August the 13th, 1976, Friday, August the 13th, by a road sign allegedly that indicated it was 66.6 kilometres away from the town of Omen. Additional incidents into the 21st century would suggest that the curse of the Omen still sits. In 2005, while filming a documentary about the curse, producer Alan Tyler confessed that 2 different camera crews in 2 different locations had the same exact technical difficulties with the footage they filmed. And in 2006, the remake of the film experienced 2 separate incidents. The first befell actor Pete Postlethwaite's brother, who died unexpectedly after allegedly being dealt 3 sixes in a game of poker. The second incident saw footage of the scene where actor Liev Schreiber finds the devil's birthmark on Damien, played by Seamus Davy Fitzpatrick, some 13,500 feet of film get inexplicably destroyed while being processed. Written by Peter William Blatty, made into a film directed by William Friedkin and released in 1973, The Exorcist was a brand new chapter of horror films, designed to be truly terrifying. No one at that point had seen a film quite like it. Production began in 1972, and it quickly became clear to cast and crew alike that most of the on-set chaos sat squarely on the shoulders of Friedkin himself. He already had a reputation for his rather manic and irrational demeanour, and his peculiar directing methods. He was known to fire a gun or actually hit an actor to elicit a real effect of fright or a jump. He would do anything to get the shot he wanted, including turning the set into an icebox for the camera to catch the fogged breath. But sadly, the authenticity of a scene meant more to him than the health and safety of cast and crew. Of course, not all occurrences can be explained away by an unorthodox director, pushing his actors to the limit by any means possible. Over the course of filming, 9 people associated with the production of The Exorcist died. 2 actors, Jack McGowran and Vasiliki Maliaros, died before the film was released. Interestingly, both characters also lost their lives in the film. Filming had only just begun when a fire destroyed the set of Regan McNeil's home. Director William Friedkin saw a pigeon fly into a circuit box and promptly catch fire. The entire set was destroyed except for one room. Somehow, Regan's bedroom was left completely unscathed. Production was consequently halted for 6 weeks. Following the fire and a number of other strange occurrences, Friedkin asked Reverend Thomas Birmingham to perform an exorcism on the set. At first he declined, but after hearing stories from the crew, he agreed to perform a blessing. Reverend Birmingham is also said to have spoken to the cast and crew, who by this point had grown increasingly uncomfortable. Ellen Burstyn, who played Regan's mother Chris, suffered a permanent spinal injury while filming. There is a scene where Chris is thrown across the room by her possessed daughter. This was executed through the use of a harness. In this particular take, the harness jerked her violently and she fell hard on her coccyx. The screaming that can be heard during the scene is Burstyn expressing genuine pain as a result of the injury she still suffers the effects of today. Linda Blair, who played Regan, also seriously injured her back while being thrown round on a bed by a rig. The Exorcist was released on Boxing Day in 1973, but it seemed claims of the curse weren't going to die down. During one screening in Rome, it was reported that a bolt of lightning struck a church opposite the cinema. In America, one woman passed out and broke her jaw and later sued Warner Brothers for an undisclosed sum. Meanwhile, in the UK, it was reported that St John's ambulance staff attended screenings to help distressed cinema-goers. Whether caused by the actions of a maverick director or by the subject matter of the film itself, there's no denying The Exorcist had its fair share of misfortune. Although not what one would categorise in the horror genre, The Crow had a slow and rocky production. It was no doubt a dark film. Apparently during pre-production, a mysterious person called the officers, asking production to stop. Brandon Lee, son of martial arts legend Bruce Lee, was fatally wounded at the age of 28. Actor Michael Massey's character fires a .44 Magnum Smith & Wesson Model 629 at the actor as he walks into the room. The prop assistant was unaware of the rule for inspecting all firearms before and after any handling, so the barrel had not been checked for obstructions. A bullet tip from the dummy round was trapped in the barrel and caused the .44 Magnum bullet to be fired with virtually the same force as a live round. Lee was struck in the abdomen and, despite 6 hours of emergency surgery, succumbed to his injuries. Though by far Brandon's death being the most tragic, there were also other incidents on the set. A crew member was driving a cherry picker to set up some lights when he fell into a ditch. It went right into an electrical pole, causing all of his organs to burn. He thankfully survived. The third night of shooting, the prop truck caught fire, and no one could explain how. A stuntman almost lost his life while preparing for a scene. He fell through the rooftop set, breaking multiple ribs when he landed. A carpenter suffered terrible injuries while working in one of the set's many metal buildings. He was doing some work on a metal girder when it touched a set of power lines, and he suffered burns to his face, hands and chest. It seems that the elements were also conspiring against the production of the film too. Despite filming in balmy North Carolina, the cast and crew endured freezing temperatures. A hurricane also ripped through the state during the filming and destroyed some of the sets. A member of the art department ended up getting a screwdriver shoved through his hand. It seems that along with Brandon Lee's tragic demise, the production was cursed from the outset. Did the mysterious stranger who left the voicemail know more than he was letting on? We'll never know. Written by Ira Levin, directed by Roman Polanski, soundtrack by Christopher Comeda, and starring Mia Farrow, Rosemary's Baby is a classic film, dealing with Satanism and the Antichrist. Soon after production, the curse began. The first unlucky soul was Comeda. Details of his death are scarce, but Polanski told it thus. In autumn 1968, then 37-year-old Comeda was roughhousing at a party when he fell off a rocky escarpment into a 4-month coma. This is the very same affliction Levin's witches used to kill Rosemary's suspicious friend in the book. Comeda never regained consciousness and died in Poland the following year. In April 1969, producer William Castle, sick with worry from the hate mail he received constantly, was suddenly stricken with severe kidney stones. While delirious in the hospital, he hallucinated scenes from the film and was said to have yelled, "Rosemary, for God's sake, drop the knife." Castle recovered just barely and never made a Hollywood hit again. Then there's Polanski's fate, told and retold into legend even by him. Polanski had relocated to California alongside his new girlfriend, actress Sharon Tate, who was fresh off her first movie role as a witch in Eye of the Devil, just before filming began. She had gunned hard for the lead role in Rosemary's Baby, but Paramount cast Mia Farrow. Tate instead loitered around the set, appearing uncredited like a ghost in the background of Rosemary's young people-only party scene, and, some say, becoming increasingly obsessed with the occult. Many years later, a friend quoted her in print as having said, "The devil is beautiful. Most people think he's ugly, but he's not." Polanski last saw Tate, by then his wife and very pregnant, in July 1969, noting in his autobiography a grotesque thought he had at the time. "You will never see her again," he wrote. Tate was brutally murdered on the 8th of August by the Manson family, as was their unborn son, all while Rosemary's Baby still lingered in theatres. Unable to make sense of such a tragedy, and captivated by the stories of the Manson family, the public took to Satan and curses as the only explanation. Internet fanatics say Polanski made his young wife a blood sacrifice for his still untouchable status in Hollywood and beyond. Others maintain the Manson murders were a mere moment in a grand satanic conspiracy, scored by the Beatles. The White Album was written largely at an Indian meditation, with Mia Farrow in attendance. The song title Helter Skelter, albeit misspelled, was scrawled in blood at the crime scene, and a dozen years later Lennon was assassinated across the street from the Dakota, the gabled landmark where Rosemary's Baby was filmed. But if Rosemary's Baby is actually cursed, how did Ira Levin dodge his fate? He didn't, of course. While Levin never fell from a cliff to his dramatic demise, he suffered a more fitting poetic justice. First, his marriage crumbled with a divorce finalised in 1968. Notoriously private, Levin never gave details of the breakup, though the Stepford Wives, published 4 years later, maybe says it all. Catholics bombarded him with ongoing criticism, as did the Catholic Church, condemning the film for its mockery of religious persons and practices. Levin never believed in witches or curses. He stated this over and over again, yet fear grew in him just the same. In 1992, in a rare interview, he confessed to having mixed feelings about Rosemary's Baby, including religious guilt. His work had played a significant part in all this popularisation of the occult and belief in witchcraft and Satanism, he acknowledged. The film The Possession focuses on a demon trapped within a dibbuk box, which the daughter Emily becomes possessed by after she opens the box. A dibbuk box is a wine cabinet claimed to be haunted by a dibbuk, a concept from Jewish mythology. During filming, fluorescent lights would explode mid-take, and cold bursts of wind would suddenly sweep over a closed set. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who plays Emily's father in the film, was a total skeptic of all things paranormal, but even he had to admit that he started to believe in the otherworldly. He said that all these odd things always happened in the middle of key scenes. Morgan spoke of even more scary on-set incidents, the creepiest one being after the movie wrapped. After putting props in storage, in case reshoots were needed, the crew's storage unit burned to the ground, and the fire department found no signs of arson or electrical causes. The imitation dibbuk box used in the film was among the items destroyed in the fire. The owners of the real dibbuk box that the film is based on offered to supply it for use in the film, but producer Sam Raimi was reportedly too spooked to take the offer, as was Morgan. "I'm very sceptical," Morgan said, "but not only would I not want the box around and to tempt fate, there were enough weird things going on around our set that I've never seen happen on sets before." So let's wind back to the origins of the real dibbuk box that the film was based upon. According to Jewish mythology, a dibbuk is a restless, malicious spirit with the ability to haunt and even possess the living. It is sometimes believed to be attached to part of a deceased person's soul and helps them with unfinished business, not resting until it has accomplished its goal. The real dibbuk box is a wine box that was originally owned by a Holocaust survivor named Havila, who escaped from Poland to Spain and purchased the box before coming to the United States. The box ended up in the possession of Kevin Mannis, who bought it in an estate sale in 2001 and eventually tried to return it to the family, but they didn't want the box, claiming it was because a dibbuk was living inside. According to Mannis, the box contained 2 1920s pennies, a lock of blonde hair bound with a cord, a lock of brown hair bound with a cord, a small statue engraved with the Hebrew word shalom, a small wine goblet, 1 dried rosebud, and a single candle holder with 4 octopus-shaped legs. While the box was in Mannis's possession, his mother suffered a stroke after he gave her it as a birthday present. She suffered the stroke the same day she got the box from her son. The dibbuk box had another owner after Mannis and eventually ended up with Jason Haxton, who kept it buried in a special military box underground after it started giving him strange health problems, including hives, coughing up blood, and welts all over his body. Haxton worked with rabbis to seal the box, was successful and kept it hidden in a secret location before deciding to donate it to Zach Baggins. This exchange was featured on an episode of Baggins' show Deadly Possessions. Okay, so the last video was going to be the end of this week's video, but something weird's just happened as I was writing my piece out for the goodbye bit. See what you make of this. I sat here, Bob's upstairs asleep, I'm sat just about to write, and I got 6-7 words out on paper. There was a thud upstairs and then a bang, and something came hurtling down the stairs and landed on the mat at the front door. And I got up to have a look, and it's the smoke alarm from the top of the doorway of the spare bedroom at the front. Now, I burnt some toast on Sunday, and I ran upstairs because the smoke alarm was going off. I put it on the bathroom windowsill, and then later on when I went upstairs I hung it back up, and it sits on 2 nails. So once it's on, you can't jiggle it about, and it was flat to the wall, as it always is. I've done it 100 times. Not that I burn food all the time, but you know what I mean. So it was secure, but that would have to have been knocked off, and then it's obviously done it with so much force that it's somehow turned a corner and come down the stairs. Just as that had banged upstairs, the TV came on. The TV hasn't been on for an hour. I switched it off, everything off. I've checked the buttons on the remote, they're not stuck down or anything. But I have to say that has shaken me slightly. I haven't got a clue what that was about. I summoned up the courage and went up to the loo because I did need the loo. Something upstairs didn't feel quite right, and I thought, when I've been to the loo, I'm going to go check on Bob in the like our bedroom at the back. And as I came out of the loo and turned, he was peering at me round the bedroom door, and he looked spooked. So I said to him, "Come on," and started to go down the stairs, and he didn't want to come out of the bedroom. Now, normally when I'm there, it sort of gives him a bit of security. He knows, everything's okay. And I got halfway down the stairs and I was trying to coax him down. Anyway, he sort of ran across the landing and down the first few stairs, looked behind him, and then kind of ran down close to the wall and past me and then out of the back door. But then he sort of came straight back in again. So, folks, I have no idea what that's about, and I know I say that to everything that happens to me, but that is just the weirdest thing ever so far, and I've had some weird things. So, yeah, I don't know what happened. Anyway, thanks for listening. Okay. So that is not moving. I would have to pull that off to get it off. So basically, it's dropped down there as the bathroom. It's dropped down there, round the corner and down the steps. I have absolutely... I just gobsmacked, don't know. And that is the end of this week's video, folks, with quite an unwelcome added extra. I've decided to take a break now as I've got a lot going on, but I will be back on the 8th of January with a new video. So make sure you hit the bell for notifications. Have a fabulous festive season, whatever your plans, and a great new year. So I'll see you in 2023. And don't forget, stay spooky.